Congressman McCotter, welcome back to CRF Weekdays.
Oh, thanks. It's great to be back.
Well, thanks, sir. I know we only have you for a few minutes, so let's get right to it. I want to ask you about your take on these Department of Energy loans to companies like Solyndra and Light Squared that appear to be tied to bundlers or contributors to the Obama administration that don't seem to have gotten due diligence from the administration, even though many of the career employees of DOE and the Treasury said that these were really not good loans for the taxpayers.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Steve. What it points to are the concerns that so many of us have raised about big government, big business embedded together, the corporate estate. And when you try, as the Obama administration has done, to, quote, recreate the foundations of the American economy by pushing green energy technologies that are currently not being produced by the free market, which, as we know, will bring the best ones to bear and let individuals make the choice as to what will take the place of a fossil fuel-based economy. So when you start to see how the government picks winners and losers and determines who's going to get taxpayer money to try to bring a new technology forward, and the Solyndra scandal shows exactly why that failed in the 1970s with Jimmy Carter and his Synfuels Corp. And why it has failed again today.
All right. Do you think that the government should have any role in promoting any form of energy? Should we be subsidizing ethanol or solar or wind or nuclear, or should the government just do reasonable regulations and let the free market do its thing?
Well, House Republicans have long been advocating an all-of-the-above energy strategy. It's a very common-sense approach, and it will help reduce the cost that families pay for energy and the costs that businesses pass on in the forms of higher prices, given the fixed cost of energy rising. So what it relies on is maximum domestic American energy production, common-sense conservation, and as we are discussing, it involves free market solutions for green innovation, green technological innovations. This is the way to go. But this is, again, why the central planners and the left do not like the free market particularly, and they prefer to have a corporate estate run by a big government in conjunction with big business. When we see technologies come forward through the free market, thousands, millions of individual decisions go into determining what is in the best interest of the individual. Why? Because the individual themselves makes that choice. And collectively, the wisdom of the marketplace has always exceeded the quote-unquote wisdom of the centralized planners. So as we go forward, House Republicans are going to continue to push for a common-sense all-of-the-above energy strategy because at root it relies on the American people to help bring us the technologies that are necessary, help reduce the cost of energy, and again, to keep, as ever, America's economy the number one engine in the world.
Okay. Now, a lot of people think that education is an important factor in the American economy, but student loans have become a very big issue of late, especially since the Obama administration and the previous Democrat-controlled Congress made student loans exclusively a federal government prerogative. What do you think, well, first off, what do you think of the president's latest attempt to, as he puts it, heal the economy by doing student loan forgiveness? And again, should the government be involved in student loans at all, or as Ron Paul likes to say, should the government get completely out of this?
Well, I think that Ron might have a theoretical point, but as a practical matter, I think the key is to make sure that there's accountability in terms of not only the students who receive the loans, but the institutions who are the direct beneficiaries of those loans from the students. So what we're seeing now is the president trying to redistribute wealth through the power of the executive branch in order to curry favor with the population in the hopes of being reelected. It is unfortunate, as people like Representative John Klein, who chairs our Education Workforce Committee, are trying to do, is to put accountability into student loans so that people can have access to higher education. And yet the taxpayers and parents and students can also be assured that the money that is going in to providing that education is not wasted and that it is repaid in a prompt and, I would argue, in a very fair manner.
Well, okay. Well, how do we put accountability into student loans? Because one of the things we're seeing with this whole Occupy Wall Street thing is that a lot of these kids, I call them kids, but young adults, are complaining that they have this huge student loan debt and they can't find a job. But when you ask them, well, what did you study? You find out that they studied, well, women's studies and sociology and art history, and then they're shocked, utterly shocked, that they can't find a job. So does accountability mean that we actually ask these kids when they're getting the loan, what do you want to study, so that they're maybe studying mathematics and science and engineering, and or heaven forbid, maybe actually wanting to go to a trade school and learning, you know, carpentry or be an electrician or plumbing?
No, I would argue that would be a very bad scenario whereby the government starts to steer students into what majors they want to have. I don't want big government having any more control over those decisions. In fact, I'd like to see them have less control over that decision. And in terms of the marketplace, it does point out where the Democrats find a problem, make it worse, and then ask you to pay to solve it, and eventually fail as well. The marketplace for jobs is horrible. The Obama administration has been terrible on jobs, creating the environment that fosters job growth in the United States through the initiative and the industriousness and the genius of the entrepreneurs in America. So what you start to see is now loan forgiveness is necessary because there are no jobs available. And as he continues to go to the public treasury to provide relief, quote unquote, for those individuals, what will happen is the economy will continue to drag, if not wind up becoming in an even worse situation. So that's the problem that the Obama administration has. But Republicans should not make it worse by having big government, centralized bureaucratic planners start to tell kids what they're going to study or not. Now, that may be the case, Steve, as you point out, with the Occupy Wall Street individuals. So let's be clear, there is a sense of entitlement. I was watching the news the other day, and they had an individual here in Washington, Occupy K Street, that was complaining about the lack of bathrooms and demanded that somebody had to pay for a bathroom for him. That's the kind of entitlement mentality we don't need. And it's certainly not the type of individual who needs squatting in front of public buildings in any community in America.
Okay, well, now, just to follow up on the education. Now, I agree with you. I don't want government telling kids what they have to study. But if the taxpayers are going to be on the hook for a loan, then isn't it fair for the taxpayers to say that it shouldn't be education for education's sake? It should be education that leads to the ability to compete in the marketplace, so that maybe you have to pay a higher...
We're going to disagree on this, because I do not think that a centralized bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. should be telling my kid what he's supposed to study for whatever reason. And as Republicans, we always understand that whatever our noble motivations, anytime you increase and expand the power of the federal government, the Democrats are going to wind up taking that tool and using it to advance their own agenda. So no, I don't think the federal government should be telling kids what to study or why they should study it. I also believe that education for education's sake is something that goes into every aspect of your life. It can never be denigrated simply because it might not have what is perceived by someone in Washington to be an immediate practical benefit upon the Treasury. You know, if you go back and read your ancient Greeks, they talk about leisure in the sense not of just simply sitting around playing a Game Boy, but actually having the time to contemplate things and bring the big ideas about the meaning of life and about our interrelations to light for the rest of the people. So, no, I don't think bureaucrats should ever have that power. I think we should have fewer bureaucrats and they should have less power.
Okay, fair enough. All right, now, I think, a lot of people think Solyndra is a huge scandal, but I think Fast and Furious and Gunwalker are a bigger scandal for the very simple reason that U.S. border agents have died, Mexican citizens have died, and we really don't know how many American citizens may have died because of it. What's your take on Fast and Furious? Was it just a botched plan by the ATF and Justice Department, or was there something really more sinister here, as some have suggested, that this was, as Rahm Emanuel likes to say, and I'm just paraphrasing him, just creating a crisis that wouldn't go to waste so they could put more gun restrictions on law-abiding American citizens and law-abiding gun sellers?
Well, this is going to have to be our last question, Steve, because I've got to get to the airport. But we don't have to guess when we have the House Republicans through the committee process investigating this matter, which is clearly an operation that should not have been undertaken. In fact, it was warned by people on the ground within the agencies and within the affected areas that this was not a good idea, and yet Washington and the central planners we've talked about before decided they were going to continue to do this. So I think that with we're going to continue to see revelations come out due to the work of committee chairs like Darrell Issa and committee chairs like Fred Upton, my Michigan colleague. And I continue to think that we're going to see for ourselves not only that this was a botched operation, but we'll also get the rationale and the facts behind it to ensure that it never happens again, regardless of who's president of the United States. Well, thanks, Steve. Got to run.
Thank you,
sir. I look
sir.
forward to coming back on, baby.
All right. Thank you, sir. Take care. Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Congressman Thaddeus McCotter of Michigan's 11th Congressional District, and we look forward